Well, today we're going to talk about weighted versus unweighted in terms of grades that the high schools report to college admissions offices. This is an issue that seems deceptively easy to solve, but clearly from the reaction of parents and students and the strong recommendations of the school counselors and administrators, this is anything but simple.
Yeah, certainly it's elicited a really strong response from everyone who's involved, from school counselors who would be in charge of reporting these GPAs to seniors who are at the height of the college admissions process or the application process right now.
It's October, yeah.
So for seniors and parents of seniors, this is a really intense time. And for other students also and parents at both schools who are thinking a lot about college and all those kind of things in the future. It's hit a lot of touch points.
Yeah. So the school board has talked about this and is going to talk about it again
on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, there's a petition that the gun parents have started. So Gun and Pally have different ways to report.
Yeah, and it's a very distinct, different. It's not that Gun reports weighted GPAs and Pally doesn't. Neither school apparently has long reported weighted GPAs. There's only the unweighted GPA on the official transcripts that get sent to colleges and universities. But gun counselors report the weighted GPA on a school counselor report section just on the common application, which isn't all colleges and universities. It's many, but not all. So some schools see the weighted GPA for gun students, and Pally counselors do not do that. So that is the difference, and some Pally students are feeling, or a lot of Pally students are feeling disadvantaged by it, and gun students and parents are feeling upset, thinking that this might be taken away.
Yeah, on the one hand, there is the we've always had this, or we have had this. Why are you changing it? And on the other hand, there's people who are just saying that this is unfair somehow, or this is disadvantaging me.
And the schools have always handled, there's also the distinction between needing the weighted GPA to qualify for a merit-based scholarship and just wanting to have that on your college application. The reason this really has risen to this level of visibility is a Pally student who is just on the cusp of qualifying for a merit-based scholarship at the University of Oregon. Her weighted GPA would qualify for her for that, and she doesn't have that right now. And University of Oregon is a total anomaly in that they only look at the transcript and they won't accept a letter from the school, which is how the schools usually handle it. If a student needs to qualify for a scholarship, they'll just write a letter or call the school on their behalf, and that seems to generally take care of it.
Is this the student with a sizable scholarship that she was going for?
Yeah, I believe it's $36,000 over 4 years for an out-of-state student at a public university, so it's significant money.
Yeah. I can understand her angst over
completely,
this.
Yeah.
So I don't quite understand what the difference is. When I went to school, you only had one thing, GPA.
Your 4.0.
Yeah, that's it. And it didn't go any higher
GPA,
than that.
It adds weight for AP and honors classes. So the more the challenging courses, you get sort of extra points.
You could get a 5.0 then, is that right?
Technically, yeah.
I see. So it goes above a 4.0.
In those classes,
Yeah. So, but students, I think students were kind of unaware of this, and now that they are, they're feeling sort of disenfranchised. But the gun school board rep said, we all know our GPAs, our unweighted GPAs by heart. No one really knows their weighted GPAs. It's not driving us to take AP courses. So there's sort of and there's an argument that reporting the weighted GPAs might incentivize students to only take AP and honors classes and just strive for that, crazy 5.0 instead of electives or non-advanced courses. But the schools don't report weighted GPAs now, and we're where we are with a sort of level of APs that students take.
Yeah, the gun student actually said that this is a waste of the district's time.
Yeah, which is interesting. He said, some students did feel strongly. I think those that have the scholarship issue, it's clearly
an issue.
Is an issue, and the district and board has acknowledged that. And Max McGee, the superintendent, actually sent a letter out today saying he's recommending that the district immediately issue a formal letter on behalf of any student, current senior, who needs a letter to any school to qualify for a scholarship. But is not recommending changing the practice at all for this year.
Yeah.
And he recommended long-term, let's convene a committee who will look at this and make a recommendation to the school board. So this idea of a committee and more meetings and everything was what the gun student board rep was saying. This is sort of not what we should be spending our time on. If we're talking about student mental health and wellness and a focus on achievement over love of learning. There are other things we could be doing with our time, is what he thought.
Yeah, I think that's surprising that this is an issue that the district has actually said, let's change our focus goals, like our major goals for the year, because this is one of them, or
Yeah.
this is risen in importance such that we need to take some other issue away or off the table.
Yeah.
And it's kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, the school board meeting 2 weeks ago, when this was discussed, was one of the most intense and well-attended meetings I had seen this year for sure. It reminded me of the zero period discussions last year, and it's sort of the same thing where professionals, the school counselors, psychologists, the administrators are on one side saying this is what we recommend and believe in, which is that we should not report weighted GPAs. It'll contribute to already unhealthy levels of competition, and then that's sort of pitted against the desires of students and parents in the community, and the board is faced with weighing those two things.
Yeah. The committee process sounds extensive. They want to get representation from all different stakeholders. But are there really that many options? I mean, do they really need to discuss a whole lot of different best practices?
Yeah, I mean, the district has looked into what other districts do, and there's pretty clear, the pros and cons on each side. Either you report it or you don't. And they also want to align the practices between the two schools regardless, just so there's fairness.
There's that division on the school board that at least one school board member, Ken Dauber, says let's just let the schools decide themselves, correct? And then
he said,
there's
we
more
should
of a-
listen to our professionals,
Listen to them, okay.
educators at the schools, yeah.
Yeah, whether this whole idea of site-based decision-making versus this is a district-wide practice, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not so important when you only have two schools anyway. But,
Yeah.
I can see that there is a lot of heat over at Gunn right now about this issue.
Would there also, though, if you take it away, or let's say you added at one school and not at another, do you think you'd have sort of an exodus from one school to the other? Or is that something
I think they certainly won't add it at one school or the other. I think no matter what they do, it's going to be the same at both schools. They've been pretty clear in saying that, and I think most people agree it just needs to be, so it's fair. And I think if parents had been aware maybe that Gunn was the only school that did this, I don't know if they would have gone to those lengths, but parents were really, really upset at the school board meeting 2 weeks ago, and it was mostly Gunn parents who spoke in support of keeping their option of reporting the weighted grades.
One of the admissions officers, I believe, emailed the district and just said that, hey, we're already taking into consideration all these different kinds of reports from when the students apply. I mean, there's weighted grades, unweighted grades. There's people who've been homeschooled, so maybe they don't even have grades. Aren't college admission offices already pretty skilled at figuring out who this student is?
Yeah.
Like, why is there a need for standardization and rigidity?
Yeah, and that was one argument made by district staff and some staff at Pally, is that every college has their own way of looking at GPA. Some of them even strip weighted GPAs because they just want to look at unweighted, and they know that schools across the country have different practices, so they take that into account. The district has also been stressing, their most admissions offices reviews are holistic, so they look at also what courses you took and your
Who you are,
extracurriculars.
what your essay is.
And that's another argument for putting this focus just onto the GPA is sort of not what everyone wants to head towards in terms of mental health and supporting students.
Yeah. It seems like, and that is the main issue that people are talking about is wellness, and everybody wants to make sure that students aren't unnecessarily burdening themselves. But I also have heard kind of both sides of the coin when it comes to like the achievement gap and what will weighted grades do to either incentivize or discourage kids from taking AP classes. Are they going to try to preserve their 4.0 by having this, this easier class, take the easier class, or are they going to strive for the harder class, maybe get a B in it, but still have their 4.0?
Yeah.
It's like you could kind of see it both ways, depending on the students.
Yeah, some students who showed up at the board meeting said, if we don't have weighted GPAs, which is what the situation has been, but they say, if you remove that entirely, that, I might just want to take an easier load because I know it won't, I would rather just get that easy A than, because it won't affect my GPA.
Yeah.
But it still would affect, certainly if they go, when they're off at college and they bring that transcript is going to the admissions office and they're looking it over, they're going to see whether or not you took an easy class or a hard class.
Yeah, that's
correct?
true. I think students who want to take APs would still take
Yeah.
APs
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah. And maybe I think the main point of the district's administration is making, the principal certainly, is that we're trying to move towards an era of kids learning just because they love to learn. They love this topic. If they love it enough to take an AP class, great. And if not, let's take the focus off of GPAs.
Yeah.
It seems that almost unfortunately that GPAs are being linked in with
I think
the whole
so.
educational process and especially the admissions process. But there's a lot of pressure to move forward with your career and get the right start in college. So
Yeah.
I can see why it's important. So next Tuesday, what's happening? There's
So McGee will present his recommendation, which he just sort of made
short-term
public
and
today, a
long-term.
short-term, long-term approach. And the board will actually, it's up for action, so the board will vote.
Okay.
So we'll see if they go along with it. I know at least one board member, Camille Townsend, felt really strongly about let's put weighted GPAs out immediately on everyone's transcripts right
okay.
now, which seems
Yeah.
unrealistic given the fact that so many applications have already gone out for the early admissions
Yeah.
process. But so I think there will certainly be some division on the board on, they're not just going to take this recommendation and move it forward
Oh,
quickly.
okay. All right. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Seems like just giving a letter should suffice.
Yeah, which is what the schools have been doing for years. It's not like they've been leaving students who need scholarships out to dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. All right. Well, that's it for this topic. If you like what you heard and want to hear or see more Behind the Headlines webcasts, you can always press subscribe right down in the corner to get a notification.